The following is a transcript of a conversation between Matías De Stefano, referred to as me, and his higher self, referred to as I am. 26th July, 2021. Animal. Me. If the flora, the plant world, is the consciousness of the world manifested in network, what is the consciousness of the fauna? I am. This is the group you belong to, Animalia. Fauna is known to all creatures guarded by Faunus. Do you remember? Me, the demigod Pan, the faun with his playful and chaotic energy. I am. He was the representative of fertility, reproduction, inciting the pleasures of life. Therefore, he was considered custodian of animal nature, since animals are those who move for these pleasures and basic needs of food, sleep, and reproduction. The attributes of the faun represent the animal kingdom, the most primordial emotions, the need to satisfy basic pleasures, the continuity of existence through reproduction, the incessant search for food, and rest and leisure as a game, foundation of joy, but also chaotic spirit that lives from fear, terror. Although you usually relate all these elements with unconscious aspects, they also hide a conscious essence, and that is that everything mentioned makes up the soul. Me. Or, put another way, the anima. I am. Animal is the quality of having anima, whose adjective is animate, and its verb is animate. Animate things are those that move, those that vibrate, those that breathe. The soul, from the Latin anime, describes the quality of a living being that has to move in a space, to possess active life. The quality of having a soul is to possess the gift of movement, something intrinsic to every animal living being, and which in religion was separated from the body as something external, trapped in the prison of matter. Me. Of course, it was taken to mean that the soul is something heavenly that enters the body, the prison of the soul, and the task of the soul is to free itself from it to return to heaven. I am. This view is not natural, but mental, and based on the belief that essence comes from a higher plane, and that nature is nothing more than a world built as punishment, designed by the devil. Thus, the religions that seek to rise to the heavens leaving this world have designed the tradition, the belief, that the soul must be freed from the body, when the soul is actually the movement of the body. It is the energy that enables it to be what it is. The body does not trap the soul. It is the soul that gives meaning to the body, which constitutes it, because without soul the atoms would never unite to form a structure. Me. Sure, it makes sense. Seen this way, everything has movement. Everything has soul. I am. Despite this, the ancients did not consider plants, minerals, and fungi as beings with souls, because they did not move. Life in motion was known by the Greeks as zoon, which gives rise to the word zoology, and zoo, which gives meaning to the word animal, or encompasses this group of living beings. But you have to go to the first beings that began to move to recognize their function in the world. Me. Who? I am. In the same way that cyanobacteria gave the content to eukaryotic cells to carry out their photosynthesis process, thus creating phytoplankton, another type of bacteria fed on this synthesized energy, and they evolved with certain mobile capacities with the aim of reaching phytoplankton. Me. That's how zooplankton came about, right? I am. Exactly, meaning wandering animals, zoon, planktos. Then, like microalgae, these tiny creatures move through the currents, being dragged into the ocean, traveling alongside the tiny algae, me, and eating them. I am. Zooplankton depend directly on phytoplankton as it is their main source of energy. And beyond the fact that some began to engulf other beings of the zoo world, always the initial energy arises from the plants. Therefore, without plants, herbivores die, and without herbivores, carnivores die. Therefore, the first animals to exist in the oceans were dedicated to chasing aquatic plants, all being part of a group called protozoa. These constitute the basis and the primordial formations of eukaryotic unicellular organisms that are heterophagous, that is, that eat others. From them is born the rest of all animal classifications, which in the first place will extend through the oceans, but secondly, following the fate of the plants, will end up stranded on the dry coasts by the low seas during the great glaciations and droughts, which will lead them to adapt to new creatures that would populate the surface of the earth through a long and constant process called evolution. Me, the evolution of species. Equal. Not everyone believes in Darwin and his evolutionary theory. I am. Well, this gives to talk, because believing or not believing in evolution is already the big problem. Evolution is not a matter of belief, it is a matter of facts. The term evolution comes from ex volvere tio, that is, the action of going out for a spin. This implies the idea that organisms get out of themselves by going through cycles that transform them. All living beings on the planet have been developing by cycles of climate, growth, adaptation, and they are verifiable facts, which does not mean that the theory is complete, because its bases allow us to follow a thread of history, but they do not explain all the events that led a species to be what it is today. There may have been many factors not taken into account by Darwin's theory, but this does not rule out his entire discovery. It's like considering Newton's theory of gravity irrelevant because of Einstein's theory of relativity. They are complements that explain parts of reality, but do not go against it. Me, I understand. It happens that, nowadays, many people simply deny one or the other position. I am. You always have to be open to possibilities, because knowing the absolute truth is impossible. The scientific method of trial and error helps to understand the logic of a truth, even if it does not solve all its enigmas. Both science, by closing itself to a spiritual idea, and the spiritual, by closing itself to a scientific idea, denotes the inability of animal consciousness. Me. What would that look like? I am. The animal is movement, and its search is key. To survive by eating, sleeping, and reproducing. That is its only trinity, and therefore it is not closed to any option. There can always be a new way to achieve these results. Animal consciousness shows us that the movement, the soul, does not close to a single path, but, seeking the same goal, manages to find the beauty of existence. From about 600 million years ago, animals began to populate the oceans, and then the land, and in each great era they went through mass extinctions or were forced to adapt to new environments, depending on the temperature, the amount of oxygen or carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the presence of water, whether sweet or salty, as well as the presence of vegetables or predators. All this implied a constant struggle to adapt that made animals one of the creatures with the greatest variety in biology. To date, almost 954,000 species of animals have been catalogued, although it is believed that there are actually some 7.77 million species. Me, a lot to discover yet. I am, especially in the oceans and jungles, places that are difficult to access. Me, what is the tree of animal life? I am. It's a very complex tree, but we could summarize it as follows. All are part of the Animalia set. This group of living beings are eukaryotic organisms, multicellular, heterotrophic, since they do not have chloroplast to perform photosynthesis, and generally tissue, with tissue. They have no cell wall and reproduce through embryonic development or metamorphosis. Remember that the fungi kingdom is very close to the animal kingdom, rather than the vegetable kingdom, although they form their own separate kingdom. First of all, we can make a very basic classification of animals. Me. I guess for vertebrates and invertebrates, the typical thing you learn in school. I am. That's right. Those who have a spine and those who don't have a spine. But there are also other groups such as annelids, earthworms, mollusks, porifera, sponges, cnidarians, jellyfish and corals, echinoderms, starfish, nematodes, and flatworms, types of worms, among others. Me, a lot of variety. I am. But if we want to follow an organizational line of this tree to which we belong, we have to be aware of other names and groups where those mentioned are incorporated. It all starts with Animalia, the general group from which emerged an extinct animal branch called Vendobionta, and on the other hand, two fundamental branches. On the one hand, the Porifera, where you find the sea sponges, who do not have tissues but are fixed structures that filter water-absorbing particles, and on the other, the Eumetazoa branch, which incorporates all the other branches that extend to this day. From the eumetazoa arises the ctenophora branch, similar to jellyfish, but are bioluminescent and feed on zooplankton. Their bodies are like bags that devour their prey by wrapping them. And the parahoxozoa branch, which contains in it the cnidarians, jellyfish, polyps, corals, anemones, and hydras, and placozoa. And on the other hand, the branch of the bilateria, which is divided between the protostomia and the deuterostomia, groups differentiated by generating anus and mouth equally in the first, while in the second case, first the anus is formed, and in the next stage, the mouth. These two families contain many branches, but in short, the protostomia give rise to the families Spiralia, Annelida, Brachiopoda, Bryozoa, Cetognatha, Cyclophora, Entoprocta, Gastrotrica, Gnathostomalida, Micronathozoa, Mollusca, Nemertia, Phoronida, Platyhelminths, Rotifera, and Rhombozoa, and on the other hand, the Ecdysozoa, Anthropoda, Chinorhyncha, Loricifera, Nematoda, Nematomorpha, Onychophora, Priapulida, and Tardigrada. Me. God, what is all that? I am. They are the families that incorporate worms, insects, snails, mollusks, bacteria, arachnids, flies, and many others. As you can see, most of the animals that exist are microscopic or tiny, impossible to know with the naked eye or to remember their names, but they represent the basis that keeps the world running, because they consume waste and promote organic decomposition to generate fertilizer and nutrients. To see the largest animals, we have to go to the last of the branches. Deuterostomia. Me. It makes me laugh that we are part of the living organisms in which, before we have a brain, we are 100% an asshole. I am. Ironies of life. These constitute Xenambulacraria, where are the families of Echinodermata, starfish, Hemichordata, and Xenosilomorpha, types of worms, and on the other hand, the famous Chordata. Me. Celebrities? I am. Where all large animals and all those who have a rope are incorporated. That is, a central nervous system connected by a marrow. In the chordata are the mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish, while in the other families you can find centipedes, arachnids, insects, crabs, snails, octopuses, earthworms, worms, jellyfish, and corals, and in a third and distant group to the sponges, as we said. Me. It's a very complex realm, I am, of which you are a part. As we said, animal consciousness is what drives you to adaptation, to evolution, to move through time and space, to develop different attitudes that nourish your spirit. The animal kingdom fills a mind in need of living with experiences. Me. But we tend to relate the animal with the instincts that must be transcended, that must be left behind. I am. It is one thing to talk about the instinct based on animal unconsciousness, which leads us to live from impulses and needs, and another thing is to talk about the pulse based on animal consciousness, which is the will to discover, to advance, to know, and never close to any possibility. It is essential that you understand the reason for the unconscious instincts of your animal part, those regulated by the most mechanical brain, the reptilian brain, which seeks to satiate pleasures through the nervous system. That level keeps everyone living in an animal reality, but it doesn't mean that the animal kingdom is just unconscious. Many animal species, such as cetaceans, apes, and hominids, have capacities transcendental to basic needs. Playing, sharing, falling in love, singing, laughing, inventing, dreaming are not on the list of unconscious needs of the animal, but in the awakening of animal consciousness, inquiring, searching, discovering, knowing. Me. So those are not human attributes, but animal, but from the plane of consciousness. Wow! I am. Therefore, you cannot be a conscious human if you have not even integrated your animal consciousness, rejecting it, believing yourself superior to the kingdom to which you belong. Me. I understand now better that within the animal kingdom there is also unconsciousness and consciousness. The first seeks to survive with emotions of fear and anger by satisfying hunger, sleep, and libido, while the second seeks to live with feelings of love and fulfillment, expanding and sharing, dreaming and loving. I am. Animal consciousness is the one that unites the world as one great family. Me. This makes me think, should we be vegan? I am. Veganism is a philosophical concept from vegetarianism, vegetarian, in which conscious humans interpret that the consumption, use, or commercialization of any animal or derived product is considered slavery. Unlike vegetarianism, in which a person is defined as someone who consumes vegetables or dairy products, but does not eat animals or anything that has involved death. Veganism works for the rights of animals not to be forced to work, such as forcing the hens to lay eggs or the cow to be milked. This is mainly due to the abuse made by human companies on these animals, treated as products and not as living beings. Veganism is a culture of human consciousness about the fundamental rights of all living beings, not about a diet. Me. And do you have to be? I am. You never have to be something. This is something that is arrived at by social consensus, such as having decided to abolish slavery or apartheid. Eventually, most humans will see that the treatment of animals as objects is degrading and against what it means to be human, and animal rights will be equal to those of humans. This doesn't mean you can't eat animals. Many human bodies still need to feed on animal products for many reasons, which go beyond nutrition, but doing this directly from nature, as other animals do, instead of turning it into a business, will be one of the necessary conversations to carry out, as they become part of human nature and not a frivolous business. Me. I understand. I still consume animal products because I feel I need them, but I am convinced that there are other ways to consume them that do not require animal suffering or slavery, and I intend to do what I can to allow these things to change one day. I am. Well, whoever recognizes his brothers in life becomes a great family for the world. Anchor this concept and sustain that world. Me. I am the root of the world. I am a conscious animal. I am. Awaken the true animal in you, the fawn who enjoys nature, and enjoy the great family of which you are a part. Me. The big family called Animalia.